He was the face of Doritos and one of America's most liked comedians. Then, in 1973, Avery Schreiber vanished from the spotlight. What befell subsequent stunned all and sundry. A failed variety display, a bitter falling out together with his comedy associate, and a mystery struggle that almost killed him. Now, the reality about his disappearance is eventually popping out, and it's darker than everybody imagined. Avery Schreiber turned into born on April 9, 1935 in Chicago, Illinois. A laborer and his mother become a secretary. They did not have tons, however, they taught him the cost of difficult work. Chicago became complete of existence. Theaters, track, and comedy golf equipment stuffed the town with power. That international fascinated Avery from a young age. He turned into always the funny kid, the only who ought to flip an ordinary moment into something special. His humor wasn't just about telling jokes. It turned into inside the way he moved, the way he reacted, the manner he made human beings sense like they had been a part of something. He loved making humans laugh. It felt natural. It felt proper. At 17, he decided that might exchange the whole thing. Enlisted inside the U.S. Army. It became a realistic desire, something many younger guys did at the time. But something surprising occurred. He entered the all-Army talent show, now not wondering much of it. When he stepped on degree, the entirety clicked. The laughter, the applause, the energy of the crowd, it became electric-powered. That moment lit a hearth inner him. He knew what he desired to do. When he returned home, he failed to waste time. He enrolled at the Goodman Theater, one of the quality-appearing schools in Chicago. He desired to study everything approximately performing. At night, he took instructions at the University of Chicago, making sure he had something to fall again on. It became loads to juggle, but he turned into decided. Theater became exciting, but it was improvisation that without a doubt grabbed him. There becomes something exciting about developing a scene in real time, bouncing off different actors, maintaining the target market on part. The middle of improv and Avery turned into inside the right location at the proper time. That's why he discovered Second City. In 1960, he joined the troupe and the entirety modified. Second City wasn't simply any other comedy organization. It changed into a breeding ground for a number of the greatest comedic minds. Every nighttime, they pushed boundaries, experimented with thoughts, and achieved in the front of packed crowds. Second City became greater than just a stage for Avery Schreiber. It turned into a proving ground where he sharpened his skills and discovered his comedic voice. Over 5 years, he worked along a number of the most influential figures in improvisational theater, inclusive of Del Close and Viola Spolin. Their method to comedy changed into groundbreaking, constructed on spontaneity and collaboration. This surroundings pushed Schreiber to increase a brief wit and an instinct for timing that might define his profession. During his time there, he took part in numerous excellent productions, along with Paul Sills' Ovid's Metamorphosis and Story Theater. These weren't simply performances, they were instructions in storytelling, man or woman work, and the electricity of improvisation. Each position pressured him to think on his toes, react within the second, and create something clean. Each time he stepped on stage, that adaptability might serve him nicely inside the years yet to come, but his effect wasn't restricted to Chicago. Schreiber became a part of a second town overview that toured New York, giving him publicity some distance past his homeland. This was a turning factor. It wasn't pretty much, getting laughs in a small theater. It changed into about reaching a countrywide audience. The experience helped him transition from nearby expertise to a diagnosed call-in comedy, laying the muse for what got here subsequent. Schreiber by no means forgot his roots. Later in his profession, he returned to Second City as an instructor, passing down what he had found out to the subsequent era. This wasn't just about approach, it changed into approximately the philosophy of improv, trusting your instincts, embracing failure, and usually saying yes to the instant. That full-circle moment confirmed simply how deeply Second City had fashioned him, not just as a performer, however as a mentor. In 1962, Schreiber met Jack Burns at Second City, and that unmarried assembly changed both of their careers. Burns had started out as a Boston news anchorman, but he had a knack for comedy. His rapid speak-me excessive power transport became a perfect assessment to Schreiber's more grounded, expressive fashion. That contrast had become their signature. The chemistry between them became immediate. However, their connection ran deeper than simply appearing together. Burns might later name Schreiber his dearest pal and comedy accomplice for 40 years. That bond allowed them to push each different creatively, refine their material, and take dangers. Their breakout moment came with the taxicab Ordinary. Burns played an overly chatty passenger, peppering each sentence with a constant played the exhausted cab driver simply lived to tell the tale the trip. It'd become easy, however, extremely good. Their dynamic becomes so sharp, so herbal, that it quickly have become certainly one of their most well-known bits. When they achieved it on The Tonight Show with Jack Paar in 1964, audiences couldn't get enough. But they did not forestall its sketches. They dove into political satire, tackling severe subjects with humor in their album The Watergate Comedy Hour. At a time whilst political scandals dominated headlines, a sharp, witty take on events struck a chord with audiences. Success wasn't always clean. By 1968, they felt their act turning into repetitive, main to a temporary split. But innovative partnerships like theirs do not simply fade. In 1972, they reunited, and 12 months later, they'd their personal range show, The Burns and Schreiber Comedy Hour. The show combined sketches, musical performances, and guest stars, proving that they had developed beyond their early workouts at the same time as nevertheless staying proper to their comedic roots. No, remember what they did? People always came back to the taxicab recurring. It wasn't just a comic strip, it became a grasped magnificence in comedic timing. Burns' countless questioning have become a jogging gag, something audiences cherish to repeat. Schreiber's escalating frustration made it all of the more hilarious. The sketch evolved through the years, appearing in exclusive suggestion performances, but its middle never modified. It became an easy idea, accomplished flawlessly. That's why it endured. It wasn't tied to a particular generation or reference. It changed into regularly occurring. Beyond its humor, the recurring showed how properly they labored collectively. Their timing was particular, their reactions instinctive. They performed off each different strength, creating something extra than the sum of its components. It turned into the kind of comedic partnership that does not come along regularly. Throughout the 60s, Burns and Schreiber became fixtures on top variety suggests, like The Ed Sullivan Show, The Dean Martin Show, and The Hollywood Palace. Top of amusement at the time, hosting a number of the most important stars in song and comedy, appearing on them intended publicity to hundreds of thousands of viewers, and Burns and Schreiber made the most of it. Their performances regularly performed up their contrasting patterns, Schreiber as the exasperated immediately man, and Burns because the eccentric, unpredictable pressure of chaos. This stability changed into key to their enchantment, unlike a few comedy duos who caught to the same exercises. Their sketches ranged from vast slapstick to extra subtle character-pushed humor. They could bring down the residents with their well-rehearsed taxicab bit, but they may additionally improvise based on contemporary activities, making their comedy feel sparkling and applicable. Whether they were performing on the dependent layout of The Ed Sullivan Show or the looser, more playful Dean Martin display, they usually found a way to connect to audiences. By the 1970s, Burns and Schreiber took their competencies past television and into comedy albums. One of their maximum terrific releases was The Watergate Comedy Hour, which tackled the most important political scandal of the decade with biting satire. This album, released on Little David Records, featured a combination of sketches that poked a laugh at the Watergate affair, lampooning anybody from Richard Nixon to the reporters masking the scandal. It wasn't just Burns and Schreiber. Other comedians like Bob Ridgely, Frank Welker, and Jack Riley contributed to the album, growing a pointy, multi-layered comedic tackle politics. Tracks like The Plan, The Wreck-In, and Youth Wants to Know broke down the scandal with humor, making complicated political problems handy and interesting. Schreiber particularly had a gift for political satire, something he endured to explore at some stage in his profession. The success of the Watergate Comedy Hour proved that comedy might be greater than simply amusement. It could also be a form of remark, a manner to process and critique the world. This album cemented Burns and Schreiber's popularity as extra than just variety display. They were sharp, socially conscious performers who weren't afraid to take on large troubles. A foremost part of what made their partnership paintings was their dynamic. People often described their chemistry as a marriage of opposites. Schreiber, along with his expressive face and physical comedy,